Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. And man, we are in here this morning, 8:45 early or 8:45-ish early on a Saturday, talking Ravens. Tried to find a more suitable time to get in and talk over the last couple of days, but here it is. This is what we have. So wanted to get in, man, and talk more Baltimore Ravens football. And we would deepen our conversations as this summer goes on. We're kind of entering that time in the world of content creation, in the world of NFL football. No matter what team you ride for, we're entering that time where there's not going to be much to talk about. So we're going to have to invest in our creativity for sure. And so today, man, want to kind of keep riding the excitement that I have for the Jair Alexander excitement. And so, what we'll be doing, man, over the next 3 or 4 videos, probably three, is that we're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens free agent signings. And we're going to talk about them in the context of, do we have enough to win the chip, and the impact of each person that we brought in. And then at some point, we may get into what the rookies will invest in this season. And so, since we are fresh off of an Alexander signing, he's the first on the list. He has been the most recent free agent that we've signed over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. Uh, at least the free agent of most notoriety. And so we're going to definitely start with him, and then we'll get into some other signings and their impact as well. And so, how I want to talk about the Jair Alexander signing specifically. Well, hold it. Let's go back. Let's just start here. Do the Baltimore Ravens have enough to win it all? You would have to be crazy to say no. We would have to be living in some type of fantasy world to think that how the Baltimore Ravens are currently constructed, that we don't have enough to go win the Super Bowl. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens 53-man roster, and of course, we don't know what that roster is going to be composed of, but if we had to guess, we could put 53 solid players on the roster who would be suitable and above suitability to win the chip. And so we don't have to rehearse all of the players that we already have, even the ones specifically that we rolled over from last season. That was enough to go be super competitive. And I think with our signings, with who we retained in free agency, with who we brought in free agency, I think we absolutely have enough to go win it all. And Raven 76, man, I do agree 100%. There is no more excuses. I think that, and that's why I posed the question, right? Because when we think about the Ravens from the last, let's go from 2019, right? Once we found out as a team what Lamar Jackson could be at that time, and then what he had the potential to become, right? We had Super Bowl hopes. But if you guys all remember, 19, 20, 21, we were consistently, and 22, we were consistently talking about the weaponry, right? And then, of course, those seasons were mixed with some injuries, things of that nature. But when we jumped into 2023 and also the 2024 season, we put solid teams on the fields, teams that were good enough to go win it all. And for whatever the reason, you know what, we know the reasons. We just didn't get it done, right? And so I think that when we look at this roster from top to bottom, we don't have any excuses unless we have some type of crazy injury plague season. We don't have any excuses not to go get it done this year. And so I want to focus on Jair Alexander specifically and why he's going to matter a lot more than maybe we could imagine. So I'm gonna go through the schedule, man, and I'm gonna talk about some games that I think that he's going to be a difference maker in. In the Thursday content, what I talked about was if he could give us 14 or 15 games, if he could give us 14 or 15 games out of 21, we should win the chip. And and that's bad math on a 17 game season. But what I did was 17 game regular season, 4 game stretch to the Super Bowl. That's wild card, divisional, AFC Championship, Super Bowl. That's 21 games. If we could have Alexander for 14 or 15 games, we put ourselves in great position to win it all. And this is not all on Alexander, but we haven't had a guy with his caliber for some time. Marlon Humphrey was good early, but then the injuries caused his talent base to decline, his performance to decline. He did have a bounce back season last year, but of course we understand Hump is better suited at this point for the slot, right? We understand Nate Wiggins gained momentum last season, going down the stretch and into the playoffs. And so now, we're not playing with a rookie in Nate Wiggins. We're playing with a second-year guy, Hump, all-pro in the slot. And then we have an all-pro level guy at the other cornerback position, backed up by Awuzie, so on and so forth. But specifically, let's home in on Alexander, right? So when we look at our schedule, when we jump into week 1, all things being equal, meaning no injuries, everybody's fresh, everybody's ready to go. We're going to take on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Weather won't be a factor, okay, unless it's raining, right? That or windy. That's the only weather factors that should be a factor. That's a Thursday night game. We kick off the season September 7th, if I'm remembering correctly, and we take on Buffalo. Now, if nothing else, when we match up with our cornerbacks against their wide receivers, I think we have an advantage. When you got Nate Wiggins on one side, Jair at this point on the other, and Hump in the slot, we match up very well with Keon Coleman, who of course is the 6'4" wide receiver that Buffalo drafted last draft. Shakir and Curtis Samuel as of right now, but I think they drafted another player this year. I can't remember, but nevertheless, we have 2 Pro Bowl level players at the cornerback position. And then depending on what Nate Wiggins does, he could sneak into that conversation as well. One thing we know for sure about Wiggins, nobody's going to run by him. That's absolutely not going to happen. He is the fastest corner in the league, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 fastest players in the league. So we're not worried about him getting burnt deep. And we know that he's showed some stickiness in coverage. So when you flip it over, okay, is guys really going to target Alexander? They may try him early, but if we get some turnovers off some of those targets, that's going to be null and void as well. Because I remember reading an article yesterday where the Baltimore Ravens are going to have a focus on taking the ball away. And I think the Alexander addition will help with that for sure. And so when our guys are holding up in coverage, that allows opportunity for the pass rush to get home. And so I think that when you look at that matchup, Buffalo versus the Ravens, we have the advantage in that game from a wide receiver from Buffalo to the cornerbacks of Baltimore. We have the advantage. And I think that Alexander gives us that advantage. Again, Keon Coleman is sizable for sure, but our ability to cover and stay right place, right time is going to be top notch. And so I think the advantage goes to Baltimore. All right, let's go to week number 2. We're going to face off against the Cleveland Browns. They know us, we know them. No tricks. Everything's going to be on the table. It's probably going to be Joe Flacco. We know he likes to throw the ball deep. And I know that their leading receiver from last season is Jerry Jeudy. Their number three receiver, I'm sure, is going to be Deontay Johnson, especially if he keeps his head together. I don't know who their third wide receiver, excuse me, their number two wide receiver is going to be. I'm sure they drafted somebody. I just don't remember who that was. Nevertheless, when you look at our corners versus their wide receivers, we again have the advantage. The benefit also is we're coming off basically 7 days rest. It's a Thursday night game. We're probably going to get Friday, Saturday, Sunday. See, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday off. Get back on the field on Wednesday, and we don't make any real contact with any foe until that Sunday. So we're going to have at least 7 days of rest, no physical contact. So we should be ready to go. Again, in this particular matchup, when you bring Alexander to the table, right? It's advantage Baltimore Ravens. I don't think Deontay Johnson has the advantage over Marlon Humphrey in the slot. Now we have seen him get separation, and if he still has, the speed he has, he'll still get separation. That's just who he is. But I think we still have an advantage. And then but at the same time, on the outside, Nate Wiggins, and then you got Alexander. I think that they can minimize and corral a Jerry Jeudy with a question mark at the Cleveland Browns number 2. That means Cleveland will have to lean heavy on their run game. And I know they revamped that section this season. And so I think that that's going to be a trench kind of game, because I don't think Wiggins and Alexander is going to let much happen on the outside. I do see how teams are going to probably try and target us this season. We'll talk about that after we get through the schedule. But I think it's going to be kind of a no-fly zone when it comes to this secondary, specifically on the outside. So I don't see any problems with Wiggins and Alexander matching up against the Cleveland Browns wide receivers in that game in particular. When we jump to the number 3 matchup, or week 3 matchup, now we have the Detroit Lions. And Detroit comes with a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. It could really be the first competition that we see at a high level, wide receivers versus cornerbacks. You have St. Brown. I think he's a Pro Bowler from last season. And then you got Jameson Williamson, who is super fast. But we have something for that, right? You have a Nate Wiggins for the speed. You have an Alexander for St. Brown, who is a technician when it comes to running routes, great hands, that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be a super competitive matchup. And I do not know who their third wide receiver is, or who their slot receiver will be. But I think what could cause us some headaches with this matchup won't be on the outside. It'll be from that tight end position. So this is where scheme and game plan for this game in particular is going to matter. I think Wiggins and Alexander will hold up. And I think, again, Alexander offers us that credibility on the outside to be strengthened. I think it's going to be a game where you're going to see some more Chidobe Awuzie as well. You're going to need to see him. And I think this is going to be a high volume matchup. Who has the advantage? I don't know. That's going to depend on how our pass rush is looking in this game. Because I think that if Jared Goff has time to stand in the pocket and survey the field, we could have some trouble. But I think that if our coverage is what it needs to be, and we make him hold the ball, that's going to spell trouble for Jared Goff. So we'll have to see. But Detroit does tout a great offensive line. And so it's going to be a battle of the wheels in this game. Should the Ravens win? I believe so. But I think the matchup wide receivers to cornerbacks is going to be a great matchup. And so we'll have to see. But that's a game where Alexander could make a huge difference, where you would have just had Awuzie and whoever the depth pieces would be. Now you have Alexander, then Awuzie, and then some depth. So I think that it makes us more credible in this game specifically. All right, we go down to the next matchup, and then we take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this is a matchup, man, where this is more than just wide receivers versus cornerbacks, because this is the Patrick Mahomes factor, right? And we know Patrick Mahomes likes to move the pocket. He likes to do some trick plays. He likes to extend the play, all those kind of things. And so this will be a game where we have to be sticky in coverage. I believe Rice will be back, who is probably their best wide receiver. They have Marquise Hollywood Brown. They retained him. They have Xavier Worthy. And then I think they added somebody in the draft. But if we just look at those top three, it's probably going to be Rashid Rice, Xavier Worthy, and then Marquise Brown. So that's speed. But what do we have on the outside with Wiggins? We have speed. So I don't believe, even if it's Worthy, that he's going to run by Wiggins because they're both 4-2 guys. Alexander is going to be great in coverage. He'll be a guy who could certainly take on Rice. And then you got Marquise Brown in the slot versus a Marlon Humphrey type. And so I think that this two will be a good matchup. But I think that nobody has really the advantage in this game. Again, this is going to be another game where it should come down to pass rush. I think our back end being able to hold up is going to make the pass rush viable. And so I think that with Alexander being able to be in coverage, I think that it's going to, allow the interior line to get pushed, the pass rushers to get pushed, get around the edge. And so I think that this is a game that we probably have an advantage. I'll go ahead and say it. We probably have an advantage in this game, especially if we hold up in coverage and the pass rush can get home. And so I'm not really estimating wins and losses. I'm pointing out some games specifically where Alexander is going to make a difference. When you look at the next game, you have the Houston Texans. And we know the Houston Texans have a really good wide receiver in Nico Collins. Tank Dell has been hurt consistently the last couple of seasons, but when he's healthy, he's good. And I think they added somebody in the draft. And so, Nico Collins is a big receiver. I didn't know how big he was till I paid attention to him last season. And he's an outside receiver. So he could cause our 6'1" receivers a little trouble. Cornerbacks a little bit of trouble. But yet and still, the Houston Texans rebuilt their offensive line. So again, the thing I think Alexander is able to do is be in perfect coverage. And so if he's in perfect coverage, it causes CJ Stroud to do what? Hold the ball a little longer. Hold the ball a little longer. What does that allow us to do? Allow our pass rush to get there. I think that's going to be the biggest factor of a Jaire Alexander. I don't think he's going to get 7 or 8 interceptions, nothing like that. I think his ability to be in coverage, be in perfect position, if there is a such thing, will allow our edge rushers, our interior line to get home. And so I think that's going to be one of those games as well. So, man, we got 3 heavy hitters in a row. When you look at good wide receiver talent, big time quarterback play, you got, remember, Detroit, Kansas City, Houston, all in a row. And so it's no real rest for the weary. And then it don't stop right there. Hold on, let me pull the schedule back up. Let's see here. I'll pull this schedule back up. We are going against the Los Angeles Rams. And so taking on the Rams, what do you have? More big time wide receivers. This is why truly the Baltimore Ravens had to go out and get a guy like Alexander. Because when you hear the level of talent at the wide receiver position that we're going to face this season, you really couldn't just go into that with Hump in the slot, Wiggins on the outside, and Awuzie. And this is no slight to Awuzie, right? I think he's going to be valuable to this team. But I think you had to add a guy with the talent level of an Alexander. That's why my excitement was what it was. And so when you think about this matchup against the Rams, they're bringing out Puka and they're bringing out Devontae Adams, who is still getting it done. And so I don't know who that third wide receiver is, but I think they're going to bring something to the table that are going to test us deep, right? And so I think that there is no advantage in this game for the Ravens in the secondary, specifically at the corners. I think it's going to be even play. What I mean by even play is that you got Pro Bowlers versus Pro Bowlers. And so they're going to get some advantage in some plays. We're going to have some advantage in some plays. And so I think it's going to come down to, again, still talking about pass rush, right? And so uh, hopefully we hold up. Hopefully no injuries have come at this point, and hopefully we handle our business. Again, I'm not assessing wins or losses. I've already done that. I'll do that again after we get into training camp or whatever. But I think that it's a big time matchup for sure. Um, and so we keep rolling, man. And again, the competition at the wide receiver position, man, that we're going to face off against, it does not slack off. We go from the Rams, I think we go to bye week, and then we come in against Chicago. And I think what helps us in this matchup is that you have an inexperienced Caleb Williams who only has 1 year under his belt, and it wasn't that productive as a rookie. But they have really good wide receivers. They have DJ Moore, who has always been good, even with bad quarterback play. You have Rome, uh, uh, who they drafted last season. And then they got a good third wide receiver, but I can't call his name right now. And so there's no rest for the weary. But I do think we have an advantage in this game. One, we have the speed factor, and then we have the technique factor. Uh, we have some guys who are good in route recognition, things of that nature. You have an inexperienced quarterback. I think we come out of this game in particular. I know Caleb Williams does not like to throw interceptions, but I think we come out of this game with 3 interceptions. I believe that. Doesn't mean it comes from the corners, but I do think we come out of this game in particular with 3 interceptions. When we keep rolling, again, let's see. Let me pull my schedule back up again. Let me go ahead and get the next 2 games since I'm looking. You got the Dolphins, and then you got the Vikings. So just like I said, man, there's no weeks off. You know what I'm saying? There's no weeks off. The lightest game in wide receiver talent that we're going to face, I think, this season is going to be in Cleveland. Um, so then when you got the Miami Dolphins, of course, they bring Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. If Tyreek Hill is still in Miami, and this is speed. I mean, they have elite speed at the wide receiver position. This is a matchup that I believe that the Miami Dolphins are going to want to go deep. I think we'll be tested early and often in this game. But I think having the caliber of guy like Alexander at one corner, I think if need be, we can roll some help to Wiggins if he, seems to be overwhelmed. But Wiggins has some dog in him, so I don't see him being overwhelmed. I see us being able to hold up, and I think this will allow our pass rush to eat a little bit, especially if you can get to Tua early. He gets a little bit more erratic. And so, again, I don't think there is an advantage for the Baltimore Ravens, wide receivers versus cornerbacks, because it's just super talented guys on both sides of the field. But I do think holistically, we should hold up well in this game. And again, I don't think we're the same team defensively, Awuzie in, Alexander out as before. But I think adding Alexander has taken us up another level. The Vikings are next. And then you have one of the top 2 wide receivers coming in Jefferson. He has a really good running mate. His name is not John. Oh my goodness, Addison. I think Addison is his running mate. They're both good. Now, Jefferson is great. Addison is good. This is going to be a game where I do think we have an advantage, not because cornerback versus wide receiver, but cornerbacks versus the quarterback. If they're going with the rookie, which I believe they are, we do have an advantage in this game. If we can cause him to hold the ball a little bit, if we can cause him to make a couple of mistakes, I think we do have an advantage in this game in particular. Um, the next week is Cleveland. We've already talked about Cleveland. You got Seattle coming up. And then following the Seattle game, you have the Bengals. Now we really get into the thick of things. So Seattle, they traded away DK Metcalf, and they released Tyler Lockett. And so they're going to roll out Jackson and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp still has a lot of talent, but I think the matchup with Marlon Humphrey in the slot is going to be pretty even. I don't think Jackson and Jigba is going to just dominate and take over the game. And so I think we have the advantage holistically from the complete cornerback talent that we have. I think we have an advantage in this game. And I think that we could get some things done in this game. I think we come away from this game with 3 interceptions as well, because Seattle traded away Geno Smith, and they're starting Sam Darnold. So I think we could come away with some interceptions in this game. So I think we have the advantage in this game simply because of the addition of Alexander for sure. Let's go down to Cincinnati. And now we're in the thick of the season where we're facing, AFC foes. So the rest of the season, we got Cincinnati, then Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Let's see who else. Not really super concerned with Tennessee. And then we have Green Bay and Pittsburgh. I think I got everybody on that. And so when you look at the rest, when we think about Cincinnati, we already know what that is, right? We know they bring out Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And really, Jamar Chase is the type of dude that nobody's covering one-on-one, right? If you're trying to cover him one-on-one, you're going to lose that battle. But I do think we have the outside talent where we could hold up in coverage. Joe Burrow is not a big-time mistake maker, so I think this is going to be played even. I would give the Bengals a little bit of an advantage because of Jamar Chase. He's just not able to be covered one-on-one. And then when you do cover him, he's so big, strong, and fast that he could get loose of that as well. So I do give them a little bit of an advantage. But I think if everybody else can hold their own, then we could definitely help out on the Jamar Chase coverage for sure. And that's twice in the last 6 weeks. You got Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh dropped the ball on the George Pickens trade, not because they didn't get a good deal or whatever. I think just simply because if they're going to make a one last ditch effort to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, then it would have been better suited to have DK Metcalf and George Pickens. I think this gives us the advantage in this matchup. If anybody knows Aaron Rodgers, guess who it is? Jair Alexander, right? And we're going to see him twice. He played across from him for the last 7 seasons, or actually 5 of the last 7 seasons. And so I think that that gives us an advantage. He knows his tendencies. He knows his arm talent. And, he could definitely provide some tips to the rest of the secondary. And then they're back to being a one wide receiver team. And so I think that bodes well for us. So I think we have the advantage in that matchup. I think when you think about, I think Tennessee is who I'm thinking about. Is that Tennessee I'm thinking about? It may not have been Tennessee. I can't remember. But nevertheless, I think that with the addition of Alexander, as you see, we're going to face some big-time wide receiver combinations. We're going to face some big-time wide receiver talent. there was some confidence in what we already had, Wiggins, Hump, and Awuzie. But I think that there is a higher level of confidence, a little bit more swagger when it comes to what we're going to roll out on the field. And so I think that we're going to see a huge impact, specifically, in our ability to stay in right place, right time. Uh, I don't think there's going to be any help needed on Wiggins side of the field. Excuse me, Alexander side of the field. And then I also think that adds a pop to our pass rush, because when you can hold up on that back end, when you don't give up any uh, vacancy, if you will, in coverage early on, it makes that quarterback have to hold the ball longer. And so I think that's the advantage of having a guy like Alexander. But let me close out right here. Here's why I think teams are going to test us. Because we're going to be stout and credible on the outside, they're going to attack the middle. They're going to really see if Kyle Hamilton can cover. They're going to really see if the rookie Malachi Starks is as advertised. I think that's where teams are going to attack. In fact, what I believe is also going to happen is you're going to see a greater emphasis on teams targeting our linebackers. Because we're going to be so stout on the outside, they're going to try and attack the middle. And we know that we've seen the Ravens give up the middle some last season. And in past seasons, we've struggled with linebacker coverage. And so I think whether it's Trent Simpson, who was supposed to be good in coverage, and Teddy Buchanan, who was supposed to be good in coverage, or there are some veteran that we don't foresee just yet, I think that that's where teams are going to target us. They're going to target the middle of the field. And so we're probably going to see a lot of different coverages. You're definitely going to see Marlon Humphrey on the field a whole lot. And you're probably going to see some help early on to Malachi Starks just to see who he is and what he can do. But I really believe that's where we're vulnerable at, in the middle of the field. Only vulnerable because we don't know what Malachi Starks is going to be yet. And we know that we've had some trouble covering tight ends and things of that nature with the underneath coverage with linebackers. And so, man, that's what I think Alexander's going to bring to the team this season. It's just he's strengthened the cornerback room to an elite level. I think it's going to immediately have an impact and pay dividends with our pass rush. And with that, man, I think we have a good chance to go win it all. There's no more excuses for the Baltimore Ravens. We either win or go home. That's just it. So listen, man, I appreciate you guys. Whether you catch it in the live, catch it in the record, I appreciate you. And do me a favor, hit like and subscribe if you have not done so. And I'm out.